Greetings, brothers, sisters, and siblings from the West. Nick on Planet Ripple here with a very special video, the likes of which I haven't made since 2016. This is Monkey Kid. If you told me a year ago that of all the things they could do, LEGO would release a Journey to the West sequel, not even a straight retelling some movie tie-in, but a new chapter of their own design, going to painstaking lengths to make a tonally consistent, believable follow-up to this classic folktale enjoyed by millions, I wouldn't believe you. But here we are, centuries after his defeat at the hands of the Monkey King's son Wukong. The Demon Bull King is revived in a slightly futuristic China to begin a new era of demonic rule. The kid comes to possess Wukong's legendary staff and goes, well shoot, I better return to the guy so he can save the day. But no one's seen the Monkey King in a long time, so the kid becomes the new hero the world needs, with some help from the old cast and their descendants. That's actually a pretty good premise. One of the better stories LEGO's thrown together to justify their products. Not completely original, but not quite a licensed theme. I want to give this the attention it deserves, so we're looking at all of it. If you want a Cliff Notes version of the Journey to the West itself, I recommend Overly Sarcastic Productions' recap linked in the description. I'll do a basic overview of the sets, talk about trends and aesthetics, features common across the line, and then we'll talk price and other minutia, like in the old Mega Reviews. There are 8 sets in this first wave, sans polybag. We'll start with the smallest, White Dragon Horsebike, because I think it sums up everything the line is going for. Modern parallels to the old story. Instead of a flying cloud like the Monkey King had, the Monkey Kid rides a self-styled hoverboard. The White Dragon Horsebike is based on the White Dragon horse from the novel. The rider, May, is descended from the dragon himself. Neat. I love the look. White, green, and gold is such a beautiful color scheme, one we've only seen so many times in fiction. The bike is drastically oversized given how small it looks in the show, but the build is rugged and at least captures the profile of an equine. It balances well with those wide tires, there's a place to hold May's sword, you can tilt the head and tail up, but far more striking is the transformation from horse mode to dragon mode. It's incredibly simple, just unfurling these dragonfly-like blades, but you can adjust them to simulate different speeds or even baggy maneuvers. You can also twist the rotors on the hoverboard to create a similar effect. The bike has a couple of stud shooters that blend right in, and you're gonna see a lot of stud shooters in these sets, including some of the larger 6-barreled ones that debuted with the protectors, but they're usually so deeply integrated they don't really stick out. The bulls get a toll booth. I'd like to see it combined with a larger fortress in a future set, but it's a decent little build on its own, with a rotating turret, a fiery gate, and a cell with a skull in it, topped with horned banners just to remind you who's in charge. It has a neat little system, splitting into chunks that can be rearranged or at least mirrored by connecting the pins. This makes them compatible with other buildings in the line, and I can see these being layered around the city as checkpoints. You're gonna find a lot of stickers across this line, and I understand that's a turnoff for some, but like I said in other videos, I prefer stickers over prints most of the time because a print is a scar. A printed piece has one intended use, and even the opacity of prints these days is hit or miss. But if I ever decide to use these pieces for something else, I can just take the sticker off. No biggie. There are pieces I wish we could get in certain colors, but we can't because they're ruined by prints. And while I've heard a few complaints from others about the stickers being cut improperly, I can't speak to that as my stickers were generally cut perfectly. These stickers are stylish, pretty cartoony, and not so detailed that they clash with the actual shaping. It just adds some texture. The bulls themselves have a slick look, the ornate horns, a nose ring, a blazing furnace for a chest complete with a Bull King's logo, the magenta popping against gunmetal gray, visors letting in just enough light for the orange eye. In reality, it's a translucent head. They have names like Grunt, Snort, Roar, Growl, but they all look the same. And then there's Bob. Bob seems to be a special case. With his downward horn, I assume he busted himself with that hammer. He's doing his best. They're called clones, but they're really robots just built in the image of the Demon Bull King. They're like the Pantheons from Mega Man Zero, dumbed down derivatives of the villain, just smart enough to work the controls of a boat or a flamethrower, but their true purpose being to make you feel like you're fighting him all the time. I was lukewarm to these at first, but they're the ideal army builder. Generic, but versatile enough to fit any situation. The larger sets even include a higher ranking variant, with a cape, spiked shoulder plating, and more imposing colors. I hope this enemy does it for you, because you're gonna be seeing them a lot. Our hero of the day, MK, is a striking combination of reds and yellows, a bit of turquoise or teal. He's looking to make an impression. The printing is top-notch for LEGO's more original themes, including some on the sides of the legs, which is pretty rare, and the hairpiece with one bang drooping over the headband feels straight out of an 80s martial arts movie. It comes in all 8 sets and has many facial expressions spread across the line, from scared to cocky to really cocky. He's got that Toriyama toothless grin, like Krillin about to make a butt of himself. May's printing is a bit less detailed, but I kinda like it it that way. She's got that streamlined Super Sentai Power Rangers look down, black visor and all. Her own included hairpiece is just all kinds of adorbs. May as well round out the gang with a couple characters from other sets, and these two are lifted directly from the Journey to the West. Water Demon Sha Wu Jing and Pig Monsterman Zhu Bajie, or Sandy and Pigsy for short. Since achieving enlightenment in the original novel, well, not Pigsy, these rehabilitated immortals have adjusted to modern living. Pigsy running a noodle store, and Sandy wearing track pants.
Hey, you remember the time we drank from the Motherhood River and all got pregnant? Ah, frick. I ain't thought about that day in years. Thanks a lot.
Pigsy has medium-sized legs, but his huge head and the chef's hat create the illusion of him being taller, so he looks like almost any default-sized minifig, just differently proportioned, more piggish. He comes with his classic 9-toothed rake represented by a 3-toothed pitchfork. Close enough. Sandy has his double-headed crescent moon spade. It's much more built up, fitting for a big fig. Actually, this was my first big fig ever. Not sure what I was expecting, but he's not too big. He doesn't look out of place with the other characters. The colors come together shockingly well, and the molding of the beard, mohawk, and necklace look like his face just exploded. I've heard some people ask what the heck his weapon does, and here's one thing he can do with it. Most of these characters have alternate outfits of some sort. Work uniforms for Pigsy and the kid, and a more casual look for May. I love all of these. They're so full of little details, wrinkles, things poking out of their pockets, logos. I'm disappointed that the white and yellow parts of May's torso print are so faded, and this has been a consistently serious issue with LEGO's prints for a few years. Still, the combination of colors here is killer. Some variants of MK's headband include a print of the golden headband they used to squeeze the Monkey King's head and cause migraines. Not sure what that's all about. The Monkey King's staff is simple but sublime. The golden hilts are slightly longer than the lightsabers used previously, adding some good extra length to the staff, and the particular shade of gold is slightly different from the darker, more saturated pearl gold we're used to. More on that later. So yeah, what a cast! A great mix of old heroes and children of the new age. The only member that's missing is Tang, who's basically the monk of the group. He seems to just be a normal guy, but who knows, he might be a reincarnation of the monk from the original story, who himself was a reincarnation of Just Too Good. He doesn't have a minifig yet, but hopefully in a future wave. It just doesn't feel right, him not being there already. Sandy appears in the fewest sets, one of which we'll look at right now. Iron Bull Tank. This is where the aesthetic of the bulls really metastasizes. The color scheme of the bulls is one of my favorites in years. Reminds me a lot of older LEGO space themes. The harshness of the black gunmetal and trans-orange top with a royal purple and gold bridged by a few grays strikes a superb balance. I actually think the magenta of the bull clones themselves complements the more bluish purple of the vehicles. It keeps the drivers from blending in and looking like a part of these things. It just adds an extra layer of pizzazz, and I really like the pieces they chose to create this expression. The shaping is blocky and harsh, with minimal curves and maximum juts. It's unforgiving, those burning eyes judging you. The stickers add extra layers of plating, just heaps of scrap iron bolted on and numerous scratches from previous crashes. This thing feels like the first boss in a video game, specifically a side-scroller. Big, bombastic, but hardly insurmountable. At the same time, I could imagine a few of these patrolling the streets to create an atmosphere of hopelessness, with that giant hateful face. It even has a nose ring. The turret rotates and swivels, and there's a place to store handheld weapons on the back, but the main feature has the most possibilities for play. Push down the turret or grab the thing by the horns and it upchucks a couple of barrels of toxic waste, which were pretty hefty builds themselves and feel like an attack straight out of Donkey Kong. But like the Dragon Horsebike's wings, this simple feature has layers to it, completely changing the profile with a substantial height increase and an even more terrifying maw. Even then, the turret still has use, now provide a giant gaping hole to shoot through. Closing the mouth and reloading the barrels is easy, but you could throw some bulls in there, make this thing a troop carrier. The set only comes with 2, but you also get Sandy and Monkey Kid. Next set, the Cloud Jet. Holy smoly, I was not expecting this. This feels like one of those movie sets where the builds started getting really inventive. All sorts of weird pieces used in unconventional ways. Cauldrons for wheels, fishing poles for antennae. Just building the engines was a party. There's a ton of pieces in there, but most of the angles were created by just a few. It is so neat how they did it. I didn't think I'd like the color scheme. The red and yellow making me think of fast food like I'm Pavlov's dog, but in hand it's very striking, and the blue flames and teal balance things out. I like the stickers more than I'd expected, the graffiti clouds especially. The only stickers that bug me are those checkerboard patterns, mainly on the front, the shaping of which cuts more dynamic lines and hides a secret. pull the lever on the tail, and it spits out a bike. A good deal more compact than the Dragon Horse bike and super aggressive for its size. It's a great example of the shaping that's possible with today's generally smaller pieces. You just couldn't build something like this 20 years ago. The forked front is reminiscent of Kaneda's bike, so hey, nice to see LEGO's employing Akira fans. The teal, which was mostly hidden by the plane, just completely takes over, really making this feel like its own thing, like it could be another set. The checkerboard just kinda clashes and throws me off, but I like the no bull sign. The engine pods are adjustable in a few places, including folding wings for easier storage, so just see which look suits you best. It's really more of a dropship than a jet. Also includes some disc shooters that are pretty well hidden. This set includes a civilian, Monkey Kid, a bull with a flamethrower, and another returning Journey to the West character, Red Boy. Ah, that name sucks. Red Sun it is! Now this is a character design. This guy and his mom may look human, but make no mistake, this is a family of demons. Red Lad here created the bull clones, their vehicles, all of it, even a power glove, which can be a claw or a flamethrower depending on the tip. Just imagine him pushing up his glasses with that thing. His jetpack has much the same appeal as the Cloud Jet. Big, chunky, dense, and loud. All those engine what's-its thrumming with power. Really though, it looks just fine on an ordinary bull. I can imagine a bunch of these guys zipping around, lighting people's houses or fields on fire. Call them Garuda bulls or something. I also like how just a couple of extra, incredibly basic pieces add new life to this old space gun. Going back to Red Gent, getting red and purple to look right together is tough, though it has been done before, but there's enough of both here to tie Red Progeny to his creations and his parents visually. I didn't think I'd like the orange streak in his hair, it just seemed like a bit much, but it looks like he's literally on fire. So many nice hair pieces in this line. As a side note, I like what they're doing with the instructions. You get a little progress bar at the bottom, explosions of joy when big chunks of the build come slamming together, the kid chimes in now and then. It's a quality of life change, like when they first started showing which pieces you needed for each step. Now keep in mind, I may have talked up the 3 sets we've looked at so far, but these are widely considered the weakest of the wave, so yeah, if Monkey Kid's worst offerings are still this good, and it's only uphill from here, woof. Next up, Pigsy's food truck, which includes the man himself in the chef's getup, Monkey Kid, another civilian, and a couple of bulls on wheels. This food truck is a beast. Even walking into it knowing that this thing eats up 800 pieces, I underestimated the sheer enormitude of this little piggy. It's way out of scale with typical city builds, heavy too, and it kinda has to be for its menu of features. There's space for 2 minifigs up front and a whole kitchen in the back, both sides open, and yeah, this is a nice setup. Got your ingredients and kitchenware, a steamer, a stove. Funny, despite being a noodle business, their biggest special seems to be hot dogs. There's even a grill under the hood. There's another side to this thing, hidden if you will. Flip out monitoring systems and a weapons storage room hinting at its true nature. The giant pig on top is a rotating 6-barrel turret, and the bull bar. Fork me, this pig was waiting for a war. This is so over the top, but very in character for Pigsy. I mean, he is a demon, he used to eat people, so what's in those links? Is he serving humans, or is he serving humans? If a bull kebab is too rough for you, just imagine something this centered, this beefy, bashing other larger builds. Very appropriate if you witness the ungodly might of real pigs. Just remove all the pointy bits if you want to pass it off as a normal food truck and not a Mad Max one. The stickers really sell this thing, but I would have liked to see some tiles cover the holes. Give it some kind of bumper, that's my biggest complaint. There's some nice team cohesion between this and the Dragon Horse bike. The Bulls bikes are surprisingly intimidating, with the horns and giant lights greatly increasing their presence. They just look tough. One has places to clip on some weapons, and the other has a hook for dragging this box of fruit, seemingly picked from the home of the Monkey King. That would have made an interesting development in the show. Now so far I've been moving in ascending order from the smallest set to the largest, but I'm gonna switch things around. Next up, Red Sun's Inferno Truck. Comes with Red Sun, 3 bulls, the Kid and May in their alternate outfits, and another civilian. I was smitten by this thing as soon as I saw it. It's basically the Dreadnought from Death Race, more of a weapons platform than a truck. Lots of scaffolding for walking or loading ammo, a few seats with their own controls. The rear tires are ridiculous. This would eat the pavement. There'd be nothing but a chewed up wasteland in its wake. There's a crane arm to lift munitions into 2 large cannons, easier said than done, especially when the bulls are seated and their arms get in the way. Might help if the chain was a little longer. I love the horns though. They could have easily left those out, but just a few extra pieces add so much character to something like this. The cannons, attached to 2 ball joints each, sit at an angle, which, while a good look, does point them ever so slightly towards the cab the further you tilt them forward. The idea is to flick these bombs at whoever you're chasing, but most of the time time they'll just land on the truck itself. Whoops. I really don't care for this gimmick, but I like the look. The ornate fencing under the deck just adds more flavor, even though you won't be seeing it most of the time. There are plenty of places to store tools or food, like this coffee cup power drill. That's neat. The entire front of the truck is a statement. The giant plow is a 3-tiered grill, all the extra plating on the hood and roof, that one extra flap, it just goes on like a stairway to hell. This is where they start throwing more magenta into the vehicles, and partway through I worried it'd overpower and ruin the whole color scheme, but most of it gets covered as you go along, so it's forgivable. Attaching the decks was probably my favorite part. They lock the whole thing together in like 4 different ways, but this truck is hiding a secret of its own. See red sun in the cab? See that bull up there in the second driver's seat? Yep, the cab switches from one driver to the other, and like the Cloudjet, pushing the knob on the back chucks out a smaller vehicle. But unlike the Cloudjet, the rear portion is still usable. Now you have 2 vehicles. Red Sun's trike on its own is a pretty meaty build, things swinging around and closing up and locking together as you go. It threw me for a loop more than once. It's impressive to me just how people continue to evolve this system. It sure looks powerful for its size, like it's essentially an engine with a seat. I don't know how the back part is still driving. An explosion of red is revealed, and this is balanced pretty well with the more mechanical details. I just imagine Red spewing trails of flame with that arm. Most of the time when vehicles like this split apart, the bigger chunks usually look bare or empty, but the main truck here actually looks fine this way, thanks largely to that blaster that sort of fills up the inside, attached to the same knob that pushes out the trike, another gimmick with some extra play. And here's something we don't see often enough, actual storage for spare ammo. I still prefer the 2 halves together, and it's impressive how much the front just disappears, bits of the grille lining up to complete the look. You can see a little bit of red, but it blends in well enough. It also comes with this bike. It's not even a motorcycle like the others. Although Bob is not in this set, I like to tilt the horn down and say it's him. It just seems appropriate. Monkey Kid gets a tuk-tuk, which nicely blends the kid's colors with Pigsy's. It carries a big steamer filled with morsels and a couple of places to carry the staff. And yeah, I'd be scared too. May has a laptop which seems to be remotely calling the Cloudjet. Neat. The last build in this set is a convenience store. I haven't talked much about the civilians because, well, they're just cobbled together from city and creator minifigs, so there's not really anything special about them, but they're just consistent enough with this theme. I'm not that big of a buildings guy, so I can only say so much. I like the grounded but not boring mix of colors. The slightly cobbled ground, little details like the security cam, antenna, an AC unit. Moving this pipe explodes an ATM. Alright, the bear really steals the show. And if you like articulated knees, how about articulated trees? It's pretty lush. Like the Bullgate, this is really a couple of smaller builds connected by pins, and there's yet another similar build that's compatible, but the buildings themselves only have receivers on either end and connect with those corners. We'll come back to this. Next one is a Mamma Jamma. Behold the great sage who pacifies heaven, the demon bull king. Yeah, don't be fooled, this ain't no mech. This is a dude. Blown up and held together by cyborg enhancements, a towering culmination of old world magic and modern technology. The show depicts it as just armor, but the set tells a more grueling story. I love how the colors are layered, the typical magenta skin giving way to rotted or synthetic purple, tubes visible through his mangled, melty scar tissue, like this was all surgically jammed together in a rush. His arms and legs are almost completely compromised, just little bits of flesh poking through some spots, along with missing his entire bottom jaw, his upper teeth, around the eyes, and numerous other places. And this is what really sold me on Monkey Kid as an aesthetic. It's such a creative update to these old characters. After building the head first, I knew this would be something special. But it's not perfect. The arms are decently posable, but you're not gonna get much out of the legs. They just haven't invented a joint with enough strength or friction to make good ankles or knees. I do appreciate the bits of rubber that keep his feet from sliding, and the hooves are a nice touch, and the way the arms rotate excites the Bionicle Kid in me, but the neck is weak. It's not a huge issue, but it would have been so easy to just use toothed hinges instead. And the giant cannons, while they look awesome, use the same gimmick as the truck, only with studs, so it's worse. But that's as far as my complaints go. It's still one of my favorite builds in the wave. The ribcage has a few layers to it, the lumpier, craggly piece underneath the orange windscreen kinda looking like chambers of a heart. And when you push this button, wow. That's a lot stronger than I remember Exoforce's lights being. Like Big Fig, some of these gimmicks are new to me. The madness continues behind his head with a flaming vertebrae. His flamethrower arm goes on for an eternity. His axe is the size of a McDonald's sign. He's a beautiful mess, really. Like, it doesn't feel like an official LEGO set. It's more like a muck with a price tag, and I mean that as a compliment. The colors are surprisingly clean, shifting from dark metals to fleshy pinks to blazing orange and red as you go up, like he's a walking reactor. And the plating and meaty bits line up so solidly, it's gruesome in a story sense, but good build continuity. He just dominates any shelf you set him on, especially when you realize that Bionicle figures aside, just in terms of minifig scale, this is the largest character to ever exist in a LEGO set. Think about that. It includes 3 minifigures, Monkey Kid, Pigsy with a rake-mounted sausage launcher with a targeting system that I'm pretty sure was an illegal building technique until a few years ago, and one of the rarest minifigs in the line, Princess Iron Fan. She may not look that scary, but it's pretty clear she wears the pants in the family. The Bull King makes good muscle, but this lady creates hurricanes as easily as you sneeze. We get another amazing hairpiece, curled up like horns, and her staff fan thing itself? I dig it. She can ride atop her hubby's shoulder, but I wish she could fly somehow. So yeah, this set's super fun, and the next one's even bigger. Monkey Kid's Team Secret HQ. This, I'm gonna say it now, is the best set. First off, you're getting the entire gang in one thing, minus Tang. May and Pigsy have jet skis, and MK gets another build because he's spoiled, this time a small mech. I ended up liking this much more than I expected. The big arms and goofy legs give it a nice shape, and I like its consistency with other builds. The same graffiti clouds and checkerboards as the jet, and even a similar pair of antennae. I like that continuity. The mech staff seems to be a larger version of the kid staff, but I don't know, the ends are gray and there's a spot to attach the normal staff, so maybe it's a different one. Kinda seems redundant. You get 4 bulls in this one, and their builds are pretty much your standard Star Wars battle pack. The jetpack is smaller than Red's, but the proportions are fun at least. The boat is a darling little thing, but pretty threatening in its own right, and we get one of those special bulls with the extra gear, General Ironclad. But the flagship of this line is no joke. How fitting is it that the water demon who haunted a river for years gets not a bike, not a food truck, not a jet, but a container ship? It's just too perfect. He doesn't even have a proper bridge, he's just hanging out up there. The boat's covered in little details that make it feel rustic, authentic. Tires, a fire extinguisher, wires, pipes with a bit of steam coming out, warning labels, speakers, more AC units, a couple of octane barrels, boxes of food, gardens, solar panels, a little bit of algae growing in the pipes. This is a home, as you can see inside, with repair bays for all the team's smaller vehicles, tools, monitors. The kids' room is especially nice, with clips to dock the mech and a ladder leading outside. There's a secondary bridge for Sandy, where he's doing very important work, and a crash pad with a chair, TV, video games, a fishing net hammock, bathroom, litter box, and a castle for Sandy's cat that, of course, looks just like him. I only wish the connections on the back were a little stronger. If you try opening this while carrying it, you'll have 3 ships. Still, this is a sweet setup, and I like how it mostly works even with the whole thing closed up. You could imagine Meg and Pigsy jumping down these hatches and landing on their jet skis before deploying. You can fit Monkey Kid through this hatch to get to his mech, and that cauldron with a boiling crab conceals one of the best integrated launchers I have ever seen. You'd never know it was there. There's even a door for the cat, and most of this space is still accessible even while closed up thanks to some easily removable roofs. Kinda destroys the illusion, but I think this visual shows what a great use of space this is. It's one of those places that sums up the entire theme, gives you just enough of everything that you don't need to buy any others like I did. But while I can say with confidence that this is the best set, it's not my favorite. This is Monkey King Warrior Mech. Okay, this is a lot to chew through, so of course we'll start with the side builds. Miscellaneous bulls, miscellaneous civilians, Monkey Kid, nothing we haven't seen before. Oh my god, it's the Wukong! Firstly, love the cloud. The staggering creates a nice windswept look, and this minifig is fantastic. He's a bit different than the CMF version released last year that foreshadowed this entire line without us knowing it. That one had the headband and the face paint. It's more like that was him during the journey to the west, and this is him a millennia later, a more easygoing, enlightened Monkey King. I tell you though, I don't think the Great Sage Equal to Heaven has ever looked better. The armor and tail give him a bit of extra height, and the coloring of his attire lines up beautifully with the kids. It really feels like a lineage, especially when you have them together like this. Oh yeah, that's this line in a nutshell. And I am so happy to stand him next to his old buddies. It's like the journey never ended. You also get this little chunk of possibly Flower Fruit Mountain. There's a place to hold the staff, so I guess this is where the Bull King was buried in that alleyway. I can't believe tree articulation is a thing. The bulls get their own mini mech that I actually like a lot. It's big enough to be imposing, but small enough to be messable. It has decent articulation, a shield that looks absolutely brutal, and I like those hooves. It goes well together with a kid's mech. Now if only you didn't need to buy 2 giant sets just to get these. Ugh. More on that later. This building is going to be some people's favorite part, a storefront with a kitchen and an apartment for MK. Like the Panda store, this has a popping out feature. Alright, we get more continuity with the same shipping logo as the HQ, another rooftop garden, another AC unit, the corner section has a nice little arcade cabinet, and combined with the Panda store, this is a lovely little chunk of China. The two sets line up in so many spots like puzzle pieces. I hope the next wave adds more to this. That said, I wish it was a little more flexible so I could display them like, maybe this? It's all down to those pins. I might just switch them out with more receivers and the little black Technic pins, but it kinda bugs me that I would need to do that. And lastly, we have the Monkey King Warrior Mech. This thing is a work of art. Not just because it's pretty, I've built other mechs around this size before, but this was one of the most satisfying processes yet. This build is a journey, full of twists and turns, punctuated by moments of pure flourish. It's so extra. And I feel like I learned some new things about LEGO by the end, and just that can still happen in a 2020 build is something I deeply appreciate. The red, teal, yellow, gold, and brown are beautifully balanced, much better than they could have been. When I first saw images of this online, I was worried those gold pieces would all be pearl gold, which, like I said earlier, is very deep and saturated, and mixed with all the red, it would have been a loud, chaotic mess, the two tones competing for attention every time they break. But most of the gold elements are actually white molds lacquered with that more muted metallic gold. It makes a world of difference. It catches light well, but doesn't overpower the other colors. It bridges it all together instead of separating it. It's classy. It's clean. The head is a cluster of fine details like ears and golden banana eyebrows, his trademark feathers that just never seem to end. And there are so many other decorations, lanterns, tassels, banners, the cape. It certainly feels like I'm looking at a king. The legs are sleek and muscular and powerful, and the longer than average arms work well for a giant monkey. Pussability is okay, but not amazing. There's rubber in the feet, but you have to be careful about the angles of the toes or he just might fall on the West. Arms can only droop down so far, but I love seeing entire slabs of the torso move with them. Quite the prehensile tail goes all over the place. Wrists can turn and there are thingies. It's easier to pose with the hands free. The staff you kinda have to work with. This thing is big enough for a huge fig to hold. It's the same staff wielded by minifigs, just blown up to its original size back when it was a pillar in the Dragon King's palace, maybe even bigger. You can even recreate its size-changing ability in real time by removing the middle chunk so it fits in one hand. I love this so much. It would have been too easy to cover this mech with guns and blades and other doodads that just cheapen the whole thing, but no. They give the staff the focus it deserves. That's commendable in itself. And you know, while this is a mech with a cockpit and controls and little mechanical sprinkles here and there, elements like the tail and cape make it just lifelike enough that you could cut out the middleman and pretend this is Wukong's giant form. Because yeah, he can do that, and you can do that. Naturally, it looks great with a Demon Bull King. It's a little taller, but not really much bigger. The Bull King is wide and they weigh about the same, so I see this being pretty even. I believe the Monkey King Warrior mech raises the bar for all giant LEGO mechs going forward. But what about this as a full set? Before we get to my overall thoughts, I have one more thing to share with you. Kind of. Monkey Kid's delivery bike. What you're looking at is not a China-exclusive poly bag I had to pay through the nose to get. This is my cheaper recreation of the thing, made from some pieces I already had, and some I ordered on Bricklink. You can call this cheating, but everything's here and accounted for except the bag. It's basically a red version of the Bull's bikes carrying some food, and much less aggressive looking. I can see him using this after losing the tuk-tuk, except it doesn't come with a staff, so I guess this is a prologue. It just kinda feels wrong to me, but it's not a bad little thing. It's colorful, it's basic, you could have some fun little chase scenes with it. Not much more I could say though, it's a poly bag. Anyway, Monkey Kid is a fantastic line. The characters are reinvented respectfully, the builds are ambitious, heck, the whole enterprise incredibly so. But after spending half an hour gushing over it, I have to ask, is Monkey Kid worth it? People's biggest issue with Monkey Kid is the price, and I've avoided talking about this to focus on the quality of the designs, but these sets are expensive. $50, $60, $70. Alright, so far these aren't so bad. $90. Okay. $120. $150. $170. Okay, so bearing in mind you should expect around 100 pieces for every 10 bucks on average, most of the bigger sets are perfectly fair. The boat's the best example. It's just shy of 2,000 pieces, and it's not all 1x1 studs. Half of those pieces are pretty big. And if this was something like a Star Wars or Avengers set or Jurassic World, you know it'd be at least $200, maybe $230. So 170 is a great price. But it's still 170 bucks. That's like an entire Christmas for some families. Pigsy's food truck is another example. 800 pieces for $70. And it's a big boy. Demon Bull King, 1,000 pieces for $90. Another beefy design with a good price to part value. But at that point, the conversation's no longer, is this a fair price for something so big? It's become, why is this so big? Does it need to be that big? Can't these sets just be a little smaller and more affordable for it? And I don't have an answer for that. I like these bigger builds just the way they are. The Inferno truck is where it gets more complicated, literally. I praised it for being chock full of inventive building tricks, especially the front part, but you could argue it's unnecessary, that it's over-engineered because some designer was so excited to show off how clever they were that they overdid it. I disagree, and I certainly don't want to discourage people at LEGO from making complex experimental builds like we've never seen. That's how we get lines like this. The simple fact is, LEGO has gotten smaller, or rather more compressed over the years. Modern builds are less hollow, more dense, more stable, sturdier, and take up less shelf space as a result. It's hard to find where the line should be drawn. As for the smaller sets, the Bull Tank is more of a $40 build, but it does come with a big fig. $60 for the Cloud Jet? I suppose. But probably the worst price set is the smallest one, White Dragon Horsebike. And it's not even that bad. This is like at least $25 worth. I'd say even 30 might be fair. But 35? That's closer to 40 when you include tax, and it's mostly because of that toll booth. It would be cheaper if, say, you only had the 2 Bull minifigures, but this is a symptom of how LEGO spreads out their factions. Every major set in a conflict-driven theme has to represent the opposing side in some form. Conflict in a box is why most of those 2015 Bionicle figures included complementary skull spiders. The idea is because a kid might only ever get one set, you want that one set to have all the tools they need to tell a complete story. And that's understandable, but as we get to the bigger builds, they start going overboard. The Monkey King Warrior mech would be maybe $100 if it didn't have $50 worth of side builds glued at the hip, most of which would make perfectly fine sets on their own, the building especially. The Inferno truck is really 2 sets. You could easily sell the Panda Store and the Tuk Tuk as a completely separate thing, but they have to group it all together so it feels like a scene out of a movie where the store is just a backdrop. The Demon Bull King is one notable exception. I'm surprised anyone's complained that he only includes a few minifigs and not a side build of some kind, because guess what? That would make the price go up. Now I love the truck, I love the mech, but I've heard more than a few people say that the buildings are their favorite parts of this line. They're a slightly smaller scale than City, but with a creator level of detail. And it's easy to imagine a whole street of just structures like this, to say nothing about the other side builds. This boat, these mechs, they'd make excellent sets by themselves. Something like this for $10? That'd be fantastic, and in most lines, LEGO would take care to set aside a few entry-level builds like that for kids who don't have a lot of money. Imagine that. Imagine if this was a polybag. It has all the traits that I appreciate on the Dragon Horse bike, adjustable head, thrusters and all, but crammed into a smaller package. Imagine if this was some kid's introduction to the theme for $5 or $6. Or heck, both jet skis together. It'd be a nice cheap way to get Pigsy, whose most affordable appearance thus far is this. Some people are selling these side builds separately on platforms like eBay for pretty cheap, and most of the pieces are common enough that you can recreate some of these builds yourself. I spent like $5 on Bricklink building 2 more of these boats. I built that sticking bike. It can be done, but it shouldn't have to be. This line would be so much more accessible if LEGO just broke things up a little bit. It should at least be an option, and yet the only polybag in this line is a free promotional extra you only get after spending $75 on other sets at a LEGO store in Shanghai. And that's the part that stinks most of all, that the cheapest set in the wave outside of China is $35. That's a tall barrier to entry, all compounded by the release. The line seen a full release in China because, well, it was designed for that market. In America, they're a LEGO store exclusive. Yeah, you won't find these on shelves at Walmart or Target, where you can bet they'd lower the prices $5 to $10 across the board. So the only way us Yanks can get them is by driving out of state to one of, 5 LEGO stores in the country that carry these, or just get them online. And as sad as it is to say this, I can see why they didn't do a full release here. This is a Journey to the West sequel, so it is dependent on you being at least a little familiar with this 500-year-old Chinese folktale. And I got some bad news. Kids here haven't read Journey to the West. They'll have no idea who any of these characters are, except through what the cartoon shows us. And there is potential for market confusion. I've heard some people, mostly teens, compare this to Ninjago, saying it's a ripoff and that the Cloud Jet should just have a Kai minifig and be done with it, because Ninjago has completely monopolized the action-adventure genre. And if you grew up with Ninjago, well, maybe that's normal for you. As I said in LEGO Rewind, Ninjago for years has absorbed things LEGO used to make entire separate themes about. Just look at this here. Instead of a Tron-esque video game theme, just make it a Ninjago wave. Instead of a D&D inspired tabletop theme, just make a Ninjago. And on it goes. Hidden Side-only Escape being reduced to yet another Ninjago wave by being more of a Stephen King-esque horror theme. And don't get me wrong, I still like Ninjago, I like the sets, but it is so refreshing to see an action-adventure theme that has jets and motorcycles and mechs and boats and monsters and giant trucks, because those aren't Ninjago things. Ninjago shouldn't be the only line that gets to do those things. LEGO's made a good thing here. Don't discourage them. Let us have this. Please. But I can see how if this was on American shelves, children and adults who don't know what a Sun Wukong is could get this Asian-inspired theme mixed up with another Asian-inspired theme.
So are you Chinese or Japanese?
So for better or worse, tailoring this for parts of the world where maybe Ninjago isn't top dog and there's a giant gaping hole in the market waiting to be filled is the only way a line like this can exist now. Because there isn't enough room in America for Ninjago and something else to exist at the same time. Now I know some people are betting on this line's failure, but in case you didn't notice, there are a lot of people in China. They have a much bigger middle class than we do, so maybe these are more affordable there, despite being the same price. So if this does take off in that market, oh, LEGO's got this in the bag, they won't need any of us to buy it. So I think that's what'll determine whether or not this line ends up a failed experiment. And you know what? Maybe it's not my place to say, but I'm pretty optimistic that this line will do well. So, if it's not made for me, why did I make this video? Why did I dump almost my entire year's LEGO budget on this one wave of this one line? Why does Monkie Kid get a mega review when nothing else has since 2016? Well, it's because I love Journey to the West. And I owe it to Monkie Kid. I was always tangentially aware of the journey, mostly through his connection to Dragon Ball, but I was always a little dismissive of it. And I love diving into other cultures' stories, so that's really weird, right? I'll get knee-deep in Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology, Japanese mythology, Celtic, Hindu, but not China. Well, a couple months ago, I saw the leaks for Monkie Kid, and I was intrigued. In an era where everything's overshadowed by a license or by Ninjago or City, I guess, this was completely out of left field for LEGO. Again, if you told me a year ago that this would be a thing, I wouldn't believe you. I would say you were lying or that your source was. But I looked into it. I listened to overly sarcastic productions, I started perusing wikis, I watched a few Monkey King movies, and before I knew it, I loved these characters. I grew fond of Pigsy and Sandy and Red Boy and all of them. I felt like I was with them on their misadventures. And I have been so stoked to see them together in hand, just like this. So yeah, in a roundabout way, LEGO simply exposing me to this great mythos made me more interested in the sets, to say nothing of how good the builds are generally, which they are, and I hope I've managed to expose some of you to this. Like, seriously, it's one of the funniest stories ever written. So hey, if you're a person of culture, maybe check it out and see if you're into this absolutely worthy follow-up, or just try the sets first as a LEGO fan. And don't worry about it being the Ninjago killer or whatever, that's not its purpose, that's not what it was made to do. Just enjoy it for what it is. So again, I ask, is Monkie Kid worth it? As big of a cop-out as this is, that's entirely up to you. It's a big ask, I know, but even if you can only afford one of these sets, you're gonna have a good time. And look, keeping it 100 here, if you can afford Star Wars year after year, you can afford Monkie Kid. As for me, Monkie Kid, so far, is my favorite thing LEGO's released since Bionicle. That's a tall order. I like him more than Chima, more than Hidden Side, more than Atlantis, more than Ice Planet, and I hope as the year rolls on, more people are able to have as much fun with this line as I have. thanks for joining me today. Don't expect this to be a regular thing. If you want to support my work, please consider my graphic novel series, Planet Ripple. You can buy the books on Amazon or read an early draft of the first book for free. There's also the Toa, my reimagining of Bionicle. It's almost done. Links to everything in the description. And remember, the real enlightenment was the friends we made along the way.